Hi, guys. Tonight, we begin a journey back to a world of shadows and stone, to a time when the setting sun didn't just mean the end of a day, but the beginning of a different, more mysterious kind of life. We are traveling back to the late 14th century, to the edge of a walled medieval city where the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, and the horizon is a darkening line of ancient oaks. Before we step through those heavy iron-studded gates and find our way to the warmth of a tavern hearth, I would love it if you just take a moment to subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. It truly helps these quiet histories find their way to those who need a peaceful escape. And I'm always curious. Where in the world are you tonight? Are you listening from a quiet room in a busy city, or perhaps from a place where you can hear the wind in the trees? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and your presence here means more than I can say. Now, settle in. Close your eyes if you can, and let the modern world fade into the background. Let's talk about the arrival. Imagine, the year is 1385. The sun has already dipped below the jagged line of the horizon, leaving behind a sky the color of a bruised plum. You have been walking for hours. Your boots, made of thick, oiled leather, are heavy with the mud of the lowlands. Every step you take makes a soft, squelching sound, a rhythmic beat that has been your only companion for miles. The road beneath you is not a road in the way we think of them now. It is a deep, rutted track, carved into the earth by centuries of wooden cartwheels and the heavy hooves of oxen. You can feel the dampness of the evening air beginning to seep through the layers of your wool cloak. It's a heavy weight on your shoulders, but a comforting one. In the distance, the silhouette of the city begins to rise from the mist. It doesn't look like a beacon of light, but rather a dark, formidable mountain of stone. The walls are high, built of gray limestone that seems to absorb what little light is left in the sky. You can see the watchtowers, square and silent, standing like sentinels against the encroaching night. As you get closer, the sounds of the wilderness begin to change. The wind, which had been whistling through the open fields, is now broken by the solid mass of the city walls. It creates a low, moaning sound as it whips around the stone corners. You hear the distant caw of a crow, settling into the rafters of a gatehouse, and then, silence. A deep, heavy silence that only exists in a world without machines. You reach the outer perimeter, the moat. The water is dark and still, reflecting the first few stars that are blinking through the clouds. The drawbridge is already down, its massive timber planks worn smooth by thousands of travelers before you. As you walk across it, the sound of your footsteps changes. No longer the soft squelch of mud, but a hollow, echoing thud on the wood. Thud, thud, thud. It echoes off the stone archway of the great gate. The gate itself is a masterpiece of intimidation. Two massive doors of solid oak, reinforced with iron bands that have rusted into a deep, earthy red. Above you, the portcullis hangs, its jagged iron teeth suspended in the shadows, a reminder that this city can close itself off from the world in an instant. You see a guard. He is leaning against the stone wall, a halberd resting casually against his shoulder. He isn't the heroic figure from a painting, he is a tired man, wearing a padded gambeson that has seen better days. He doesn't say much. He just watches you with bored, heavy-lidded eyes. He has seen hundreds of travelers like you today, all seeking the same thing: safety, food, and a place to sleep. You pass under the archway, and the air suddenly feels different. It's trapped. The wind stops, and you are hit with the smell of the city. It's a dense, complex aroma. The smell of horse manure, the sharp tang of charcoal fires, the faint, sweet scent of baking bread from a late-night oven, and the underlying dampness of stone that never quite dries. The street ahead is narrow. The overhanging jetties of the timber-framed houses lean toward each other, cutting off the sky until only a thin ribbon of purple remains above. It is dark here. There are no street lights. The only light comes from the occasional link boy carrying a torch of resinous wood, or the faint orange glow escaping from the cracks in a window shutter. Your feet find the cobblestones now. They are uneven, slippery with a thin film of grime and rainwater. You have to walk slowly, carefully, feeling the shape of each stone through the soles of your boots. Click, scrape, click. The sound of your journey is changing. You are no longer in the wild, you are in the hive. But the hive is winding down for the night. Most of the shops are closed. The blacksmith's forge is a dying ember, the rhythmic clanging of his hammer replaced by the soft hiss of cooling iron. The market square is empty, save for a few stray dogs sniffing around the abandoned wooden stalls. You feel a sense of isolation even here, among the houses of thousands. The city at night is a private place. Behind those shuttered windows, families are huddled around small fires, eating bowls of pottage, talking in low voices, preparing for the early sunrise. But you are a stranger. And for a stranger, there is only one destination. You look for the sign. You listen for the sound of more than just one family. You are looking for the light that doesn't go out at curfew. As you turn a sharp corner, the street opens up slightly. And there, at the end of a particularly dark alley, you see it. A warm, golden light spilling out from a doorway, casting long, dancing shadows across the wet cobblestones. It's the tavern. You stop for a moment, just at the edge of the light. The cold air nips at your nose, and your fingers are slightly numb inside your gloves. But the sight of that golden glow, and the very faint, muffled sound of a laugh from inside, makes your heart settle. The transition is almost complete. You have left the vast, lonely darkness of the road, you have passed through the cold, gray stone of the gates, and now you are standing on the threshold of the only warmth the night has to offer. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your cloak one last time. Listen to the distant drip of water from a roof gutter. In a moment, we will reach for that handle. We will push open that heavy door. And we will step inside to see what it was really like inside a medieval tavern. But for now, just stand here in the shadows, at the city gates, and let the quiet of the 14th century wash over you. We are standing now, just outside the threshold. The cold night air of the 14th century still clings to your skin, but the golden light from the tavern window is reaching out, touching the wet cobblestones at your feet. But before we enter, before we leave the night behind, your eyes are drawn upward. Above the door, hanging from a rusted iron bracket, is the signboard. In this age, when most people cannot read the letters of the alphabet, the sign is everything. It is the tavern's identity, its face, its silent greeting to the weary traveler. Take a moment to just look at it. The board is made of thick, heavy oak, heartwood that was cut from a forest perhaps 100 years ago. It has survived decades of English rain, biting frosts, and the scorching heat of summer suns. You can see the grain of the wood, deep, dark ridges like the lines on an old man's face, carved by time and the elements. Listen, as a stray gust of wind catches it. Creak, creak. It's a slow, rhythmic groan of metal against metal. The iron ring holding the board has worn a groove into the bracket, and with every tilt, it speaks. A lonely, repeating, mechanical sigh. Creak, creak. The paint is old. It is cracked and flaking, falling away in tiny, microscopic scales that drift into the mud below. Once, perhaps 20 years ago, it was vibrant. A deep, royal crimson, a bright, sun-kissed gold. But now, it is a ghost of its former self. The image is of a great white hart, a stag with reaching antlers, but the white has faded into a ghostly gray, and the antlers are almost lost in the dark stains of water damage. Look closer at the stag's eye. The artist who painted it is long gone, but he left a tiny glint of white lead paint right in the center. Even in this dim light, as the board sways, that eye seems to catch the flicker of the lanterns from inside. It looks at you, a silent witness to every traveler who has ever paused at this door. The edges of the board are charred. Perhaps from a fire long ago, or perhaps just the natural blackening of the oak as it rots very, very slowly. There is a green moss, thin and velvety, growing in the dampest corner of the frame. It thrives in the shadows, drinking the humidity of the city, a tiny, living world existing on a piece of wood. Think of the hands that have touched the post holding this sign. The knights, the peasants, the friars in their brown robes. They all looked up, just as you are doing now. To them, this faded stag wasn't just a painting. It was a promise. A promise of a fire that doesn't go out, of a roof that doesn't leak, and of a cup that will be filled. The wind picks up slightly, and the rain, which had been a soft mist, begins to patter against the wood. Tick, 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 tap. Each drop hits the signboard with a tiny thud. Some drops run down the stag's antlers, gathering into a single, heavy bead of water at the tip, before falling, down, down, onto the stone step. You find yourself mesmerized by the swaying of the board. It moves in a slow, predictable arc. Left, then right. Left, then right. It's like a pendulum, counting down the seconds of a century that moves much slower than our own. There is no rush here. There are no clocks ticking on walls. There is only the wind, the wood, and the iron. As you watch, you notice the iron bracket itself. It was forged by a local blacksmith, hammered into the shape of a vine. You can see the individual hammer marks, the places where the smith's strength met the glowing metal. It's thick and sturdy, but even iron yields to the air. Flakes of orange rust are blooming like autumn leaves across its surface. The rust has stained the stone wall where the bracket is anchored. Long, vertical streaks of amber and brown, like tears shed by the building itself. The stone is cold. You reach out and touch the doorframe. The grain of the stone is rough, grit under your fingertips. But the signboard above continues its dance, oblivious to your touch. How many storms has this white hart survived? How many nights of total darkness, when the city was silent and the only sound was this creak, creak? It has hung here through plagues and through festivals. Through the reigns of kings whose names are now only found in dusty scrolls. It is a silent sentinel, the guardian of the threshold. You feel a strange sense of gratitude for this old piece of oak. It has stayed at its post, waiting for you, telling you that you have arrived, that the journey through the mud and the darkness is over for tonight. The light from the tavern window flickers again. A log must have shifted in the fireplace inside. For a second, the faded red of the stag's collar glows, a brief memory of its original glory. And then, it fades back into the shadows. Your breath hitches slightly in the cold air, forming a tiny cloud of white vapor that drifts up toward the sign. It curls around the wooden board, dancing for a moment in the draft, before vanishing into the night. The sign says nothing, yet it tells you everything. It tells you that inside, the floor is dry. It tells you that the world of the road, the world of the cold, is behind you. One more time, listen to the sound. The voice of the tavern. Creak, creak. It's the sound of history, moving slowly, 1 inch at a time. You take a step forward. Your hand reaches for the heavy iron latch of the door, just below where the shadow of the signboard falls. The wood of the door is cool, but you can feel the faint vibration of voices from the other side. Before you push it open, you look up one last time at the white heart. It sways in the wind, a silent, wooden blessing. Now, the latch is under your thumb. The iron is cold, but the warmth is only an inch away. Your hand is now resting on the iron latch. But stay here, just for a moment longer. Feel the surface of the door beneath your fingertips. This is no ordinary entrance. This is the barrier, the thick, silent protector between the chaos of the medieval night and the sanctuary of the hearth. The wood is oak, ancient and dense. It was harvested from the deep forests of the Midlands, trees that grew for 200 years before a carpenter's axe ever touched them. You can feel the sheer mass of it. It doesn't feel like a door, it feels like the side of a mountain. Run your hand down the grain. It is rough in some places, worn smooth in others where thousands of hands have pushed against it. The wood is cold, chilled by the damp evening air, but there is a faint, almost imperceptible vibration coming from the other side. It's the muffled hum of life. Notice the ironwork. This door is held together by massive horizontal bands of wrought iron. They are black, pitted by decades of oxidation, hand-hammered by a smith who breathed his own life into the metal. The rivets are large and round, like the studs on a shield. Each one was driven deep into the oak, binding the planks so tightly that not even the fiercest winter gale could whistle through the cracks. Look at the latch. It is a heavy, thumb-press latch, made of solid iron. It is polished to a dull shine by the friction of a million thumbs. Your own thumb rests upon it now. You feel the cold metal, the slight grit of the city's dust, and the resistance of the internal spring. Behind this door, the air is different. You can sense it pressing against the wood. On this side, the air is thin, wet, and smells of old stone. On the other side, it is thick with the scent of roasting meat, spiced ale, and the heavy, sweet smell of beeswax candles. The door is the only thing holding those two worlds apart. Listen to the sounds of the door itself. As you apply the slightest pressure, the wood groans. A deep, low, resonant sound that vibrates in your chest. It's the sound of history resisting change. A slow, wooden protest. The door is slightly recessed into a stone archway. The stones are massive blocks of granite, moss-slicked and dark. As you stand in this little alcove, you are protected from the rain for a brief second. The water drips from the lintel above, plip, plip, plop, hitting the toes of your boots. Think of the stories this door could tell, if the oak had a memory. It has seen travelers arriving in the dead of night, fleeing from shadows. It has seen knights in clanking armor, their surcoats stained with the dust of the road. It has seen merchants with heavy purses, and beggars with nothing but hope. Each one of them, for one heartbeat, stood exactly where you are standing now. You begin to press the latch down. Click. The sound is sharp, echoing in the narrow street behind you. The internal mechanism moves, a heavy bar of iron lifting away from its cradle on the inside. You feel the weight shift. The door is no longer locked, it is merely waiting for your strength. The weight of the oak is immense. You have to lean your shoulder into it. As it begins to move, the hinges start to speak. N-N-N-N-N-N-G creak. These hinges are long, stretching halfway across the door's width. They haven't been oiled in years. The sound they make is a long, high-pitched, metallic song. It's the tavern's doorbell, announcing to everyone inside that a stranger has arrived from the dark. A sliver of light appears. Just a thin, vertical line of brilliant, flickering orange. It cuts through the darkness like a blade. As the gap widens, the sounds from inside spill out into the street. The low murmur of a dozen voices, the clinking of a ceramic jug, the crackle of a dry log exploding in the fireplace. The air that hits your face is warm. It's a physical sensation, like a warm blanket being draped over your cold shoulders. It carries the weight of the tavern's soul. You can smell the perpetual stew now, the onions, the salt pork, the earthy herbs. You push the door wider. The arc of the door's movement reveals the floor inside. The transition from wet cobblestone to dry, golden brown rushes. The rushes are deep, a thick carpet of dried grass and herbs meant to soak up the spills of the day. You are halfway between worlds now. Your left foot is still in the 14th century night, in the mud and the cold. Your right foot is hovering over the threshold, ready to step into the amber glow of the common room. The door continues its slow, groaning swing. It's as if the building itself is exhaling. H. The shadows behind you on the street stretch out, long and thin, as the light from the interior pours past you. Look at the thickness of the door as it stands open. It is 4 inches of solid, uncompromising wood. It is designed to withstand a siege, yet here it is, opening for you. There is a moment of stillness. You are framed in the doorway. For a few seconds, the people inside don't look up. They are lost in their own little worlds, their own small comforts. The firelight dances across the ceiling beams, massive timbers that mirror the oak of the door. You take that final step. You move across the threshold. Now, reach back. You must close the world out. You grab the inner handle, a simple iron ring. You pull the heavy mass of the door back toward you. It moves more easily now, as if it's eager to be shut again. Clunk. The heavy bar falls back into place. Thud. The sound is final. The night is gone. The rain is a memory. The wind is a ghost scratching at the exterior. You are inside. Lean your back against the wood for a moment. Feel the solidity of it behind your spine. You are safe. The oak has done its job. The door has closed behind you, and the heavy thud of the iron bar has sealed the world away. Take a breath. No. Take a deeper breath. Your lungs, which for hours have been filled with the thin, sharp, cold air of the open road, are suddenly met with something entirely different. It is the breath of the tavern. It's a sensory weight, a thick, invisible curtain that wraps around you the moment you step onto the rushes. Let's dismantle this atmosphere, piece by piece. First, there is the smoke. It isn't the choking smoke of a forest fire, but a soft, blue, ancient haze. In this century, the chimney is still a developing craft. Much of the smoke from the great stone hearth doesn't find its way out perfectly. Instead, it lingers, hanging in layered ribbons just below the massive ceiling beams. Watch the way the smoke moves. It swirls in slow, lazy spirals, caught in the invisible drafts of the room. It is the smell of seasoned oak and damp peat. It's a dry, earthy scent that tickles the back of your throat just enough to remind you that you are warm. That smoke has seasoned the very wood of this building for decades, turning the white plaster walls into a deep, rich, tobacco brown. As you stand there, adjusting to the dimness, the scent of the perpetual stew becomes the dominant note. It is a smell that never truly leaves these walls. It's the smell of beef bones simmered until the marrow melts. The sweetness of old carrots, the sharp bite of wild onions, and the heavy, comforting aroma of barley. It smells like survival. It smells like home for those who have none. But there are other layers, deeper layers. There is the smell of the rushes on the floor. Beneath your boots, the dried grass is releasing its own scent. Many taverns mix dried lavender, or sweet gale, or mint, into the floor straw to mask the smells of the city. As people walk, they crush these herbs, releasing a faint, floral ghost into the heavy air. A tiny hint of summer, trapped in the middle of a winter night. And then, there is the scent of the spirits. Not the spirits of the dead, but the spirits of the grain. The sharp, yeasty tang of freshly poured ale. It's a fermented, bready smell, thick and slightly sour. It mingles with the cloying, floral sweetness of the mead, a scent of fermented honey that reminds you of sun-drenched meadows. Wait, just listen to the air for a moment. H. The sound of a dozen people breathing, the soft crackle of the fire, it all adds to the density of the room. You can smell the damp wool of your own cloak as it begins to steam in the warmth. That peculiar, earthy, animal smell of wet sheep's wool. Everyone in this room carries that scent. It's the smell of the common man. It's honest, and it's heavy. You notice the smell of the tallow candles. They aren't made of clean, modern wax. They are made of rendered animal fat. As they burn, they give off a slightly salty, smoky scent, like meat cooking in the distance. It's a thick smell, one that you can almost taste on your tongue. Everything here is organic. There is no plastic, no sterile chemicals, no artificial perfumes. It is a world of wood, stone, meat, and herb. Close your eyes in your mind. Imagine the air as a physical thing. It's warm, almost like walking into water. It's the temperature of a fever, comforting and steady. The humidity is high because of the rain outside and the large pot of stew boiling on the hearth. You can feel it on your skin, a soft, damp kiss that makes your tired muscles want to unknot. The light itself seems to have a smell. That flickering, orange glow of the firelight, it feels like it carries the scent of the embers. You see the dust motes dancing in the beams of light. They move like tiny stars in a thick, amber nebula. They don't fall, they just drift, suspended in the density of the smoke and the steam. The sensory overload is not aggressive. It is a slow, welcoming embrace. It tells your brain that the hunt for shelter is over. The survival instinct, which has been screaming in your ears since the sun went down, finally, slowly, begins to whisper. You are safe. You are warm. You are here. The voices around you are muffled by this thick atmosphere. The air is so heavy that sound doesn't travel far. It keeps the conversations private. A laugh at the bar sounds like it's coming from under a blanket. The clink of a spoon against a wooden bowl is soft, dampened by the smoke. You feel a slight heaviness in your eyelids. The smoke, the warmth, the smell of the herbs, they are natural sedatives. They are the ancient world's version of a lullaby. Your nose begins to filter the smells now. They blend into one singular aroma. The scent of the tavern. It is the smell of the 14th century at rest. Take another breath. A long, slow, steady draw of that thick air. Feel it fill your chest, warming you from the inside out. You aren't just a visitor anymore. By breathing this air, you have become part of the room. Part of the history. The smoke continues its dance overhead. The stew continues to bubble. The tallow continues to drip. Stay in this moment. Don't move just yet. Let your senses finish their inventory. Let the warmth reach your bones. The world outside is 1,000 miles away. The darkness is a forgotten dream. There is only the gold, the smoke, and the heavy, beautiful scent of the night's refuge. You take your first step away from the door, and as you do, the ground beneath you speaks. It is a sound you don't hear in the modern world. A soft, rhythmic, hollow crunch. Crunch, rustle, crunch. Look down. Underneath your heavy leather boots, the floor is not made of polished wood or cold tile. It is covered in a thick, deep layer of rushes. These are the long, green stems of meadow plants, harvested from the riverbanks, dried in the summer sun, and brought here to serve as the tavern's living carpet. Take a moment to feel the floor through the soles of your shoes. It's uneven, yielding, and strangely springy. Beneath the dry straw, the floor is just earth, packed hard by centuries of footsteps. But the rushes are the buffer. They are the skin of the room. Notice the color of the floor in the firelight. Near the hearth, the straw is a bright, toasted gold. Further back in the shadows, where the dampness of the night lingers, the rushes are a deep, forest brown. In some places, where people haven't walked for a while, the stems are still long and straight. In the main pathways, they have been crushed into a fine, soft mulch, almost like a bed of needles in an ancient pine forest. Listen to the sound again. Rustle, rustle. Every time you shift your weight, the floor sighs. It's a dry, papery sound, a whisper from the fields. In this medieval world, the floor is more than just something to walk on. It is the tavern's filter. As you walk, you notice tiny flecks of green and gray mixed in with the yellow straw. These are strewing herbs. The tavern keeper has scattered dried lavender, sweet woodruff, and meadowsweet among the rushes. Imagine, with every step you take, your weight crushes these dried flowers. A faint, ghostly aroma of last July's meadow rises up to meet you. It's a clean, herbal scent, fighting against the heavy smoke and the smell of the stew. It's as if you are walking on the memory of a garden, long since past. Look closely at the corner where a heavy oak table stands. The rushes are piled high there, like a small drift of snow. You see a few stray feathers, perhaps from a traveler's cap, or a bird that flew in during the day. You see the occasional dropped crust of bread, slowly disappearing into the straw. The floor is a world of its own. It absorbs the spills of ale, the drips of candle wax, and the mud from 100 different roads. And yet, it feels clean in its own primitive way. It is organic. It is part of the earth. Think about the insulation. Outside, the ground is freezing, the mud is turning to ice in the ruts of the road. But here, this layer of rushes acts as a barrier. It holds the heat of the fire, trapping the warmth between the stalks of grass. As you stand still, you can feel the warmth rising from the floor, seeping through your boots, soothing the soles of your aching feet. Move your foot slowly, just a few inches. Scrape, hiss, rustle. The sound is hypnotic. If you were to close your eyes, you might imagine you are walking through a field of tall wheat in the wind. But there is no wind here. Only the steady, comforting stillness of the tavern. You notice how the floor dampens the sound of the room. In a building made of stone and timber, footsteps should echo. They should ring out against the walls. But the rushes swallow the noise. The tavern is quiet, not because people aren't moving, but because the floor is listening. It takes the sharp edges off every sound. The clatter of a fallen spoon, the movement of a stool, the heavy tread of a traveler, they all become soft, muffled, and distant. It creates a blanket of silence that sits just above the floorboards. As you walk toward the fire, the rushes become warmer. You see the way the orange light plays across the texture of the straw. It creates thousands of tiny, dancing shadows. Every single stem of grass has its own shadow, its own little sliver of darkness. It's like walking on a golden sea, frozen in time. Your legs feel heavy now. The springiness of the floor makes every step feel like a conscious decision. You aren't rushing. You can't rush here. The floor demands a slower pace. It demands that you feel the ground. Think of the cycles of this floor. Every few weeks, the old rushes are swept away, and fresh, green ones are brought in. The old stories, the old spills, the old dust, all of it is cleared out to make room for the new. But for tonight, this is your floor. This is your path. Stop for a second. Just stand still. Can you hear the silence of the grass? The floor is the foundation of your comfort tonight. It is the bridge between the cold exterior stone and the warmth of the fire you are about to reach. As you prepare to find a seat, take one more step. Rustle. Feel the history of the earth beneath you. Feel the softness. Feel the peace. The road is behind you. The gate is closed. The sign is creaking in the wind outside. But here, on this bed of dried meadow, you are finally, truly, grounded. The rustle of the rushes beneath your boots begins to fade as you approach the deepest, warmest, and most sacred corner of the room. The hearth. In this 14th century night, this fireplace is not just a source of heat, it is the very heart of the building. As you draw closer, the orange glow begins to dance across your face, a flickering choreography that washes away the memory of the freezing road. There, tucked into the corner, is a massive, ancient, oak bench. Look at it for a moment. The wood is nearly black, seasoned by decades of smoke and the constant radiation of the fire. It is hard as stone, polished by the coats of 1,000 weary travelers who sat here before you. You lower yourself, slowly, onto the bench. Listen to the wood as it accepts your weight. Creak, creak. A low, groaning welcome that settles into the silence of the room. Sit back. Feel the solidity of the timber against your spine, and the primal, inviting heat against your front. Directly before you lies the great stone fireplace. The stones are massive, uneven blocks of limestone, dragged from a local quarry long before you were born. They have absorbed the heat of a million logs, and they are breathing that warmth back out, a steady, invisible wave of comfort that sinks deep into your bones. Listen to the language of the fire. Pop. Crackle. Hiss. A pocket of sap in a dry oak log explodes with a tiny, sharp report, only to be swallowed again by the constant, low roar of the flames. This is the sound of safety. It is a sound that tells your mind that the cold cannot reach you here. Watch the flames. They twist around each other, rising in ribbons of gold and deep amber, before vanishing into the soft blue haze of the smoke. The colors are shifting, from a brilliant lemon yellow at the tips, to a dark, smoldering crimson at the core. If you stare into it long enough, your eyelids will begin to feel heavy. This is the world's oldest hypnosis. Extend your hands toward the light. Feel the tingle in your fingertips. The tips of your fingers, which were numb and pale from the winter air, are beginning to throb with returning life. The warmth spreads, moving from your palms to your wrists, traveling up your arms like a gentle, liquid peace. A light steam begins to rise from the damp wool of your cloak, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and ancient smoke. From this vantage point by the hearth, you can see the others in the room. But no one looks at you. Here, every soul is under the spell of the fire. A man across from you has his chin tucked into his chest, his eyes closed, his hands wrapped around a wooden bowl that has long since gone cold. The rhythmic breathing of the sleepers mingles with the rhythm of the flames, creating a singular, droning harmony. Above the fire hangs the great iron cauldron. The chain holding it sways almost imperceptibly. Ting, ting. A faint, metallic chime that punctuates the silence. The fire licks the soot-covered bottom of the pot, where the perpetual stew is simmering. The steam rises in thick, white plumes, disappearing into the blackened rafters above your head. Think of the stories that have been born around this hearth. People have sat exactly where you are sitting to talk of wars, of harvests, and of lost loves. But tonight, there is no need for words. Tonight is only for feeling. For being. Your feet, buried in the warm rushes near the stone base, are finally beginning to thaw. The heat from the earth itself seems to be rising up, loosening the knots in your muscles, relaxing the tension in your shoulders. The weight you have been carrying for miles, that heavy mantle of exhaustion, is melting away, dripping onto the floor like water. Close your eyes for a moment. You can still feel the heat on your eyelids. A warm, red glow fills your internal vision. The draft from the chimney creates a low, haunting whistle, like the building is taking a long, slow, deep breath. Stay still. Let the radiation of the stones soak into your back. You are no longer a traveler. You are a guest of the fire. The world outside is a shadow. The rain against the window is just a distant, rhythmic percussion, a reminder of the cold you have escaped. Watch the embers at the base of the fire. They are like a city of glowing jewels, pulsing with a light that seems to breathe. Deep red, then bright orange, then fading to a soft, silver ash. The heat is steady. It is honest. It is the only thing that matters in the middle of a medieval night. As you sit by the warmth of the hearth, your eyes begin to wander away from the flames, drifting toward the center of the room. There, standing behind a counter of thick, scarred timber, is the tavern keeper. He is a man who seems to be made of the same materials as the building itself, stone, oak, and shadows. He does not move quickly. There is no urgency in his world. He moves with a slow, deliberate economy of motion, as if he has performed these same actions for 1,000 years. Watch him now. He is holding a heavy pewter tankard in one hand and a coarse, gray linen cloth in the other. Scrape, swirl, scrape. The sound of the cloth against the metal is rhythmic, a dry, shushing sound that fills the gaps between the crackle of the fire. He isn't just cleaning the mug, he is polishing away the day. His face is a map of a long, quiet life. Deep lines are etched around his eyes, the result of squinting through wood smoke and dim candlelight. His beard is thick, the color of iron and salt, and it moves slightly as he breathes. He doesn't smile. He doesn't frown. He simply exists. A silent anchor in this sea of weary travelers. He wears an apron of heavy, stained leather over a tunic of undyed wool. You can see the dark spots where ale has splashed, and the silver dusting of flour from the evening's baking. Every stain is a memory of a meal served, a thirst quenched, a night survived. Notice his hands. They are large, powerful hands, with thick fingers and broken nails. They are hands that have hauled barrels of heavy ale from the cellar, hands that have stoked the fire you are currently enjoying, hands that have held the heavy iron bar of the door you just walked through. They are the hands of a protector. He looks up for a moment, his eyes meeting yours across the smoky expanse of the room. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. In that one, heavy, steady gaze, there is an unspoken contract. He provides the shelter, the warmth, and the silence. You provide the presence and the coin. He reaches for a large, ceramic jug sitting on the back shelf. The movement is slow, his arm tracing a heavy arc through the air. The jug is cool to the touch, sweat with condensation from the cellar's dampness. Listen as he sets it down on the wood. Thump. A solid, muffled sound that speaks of weight and substance. Now, he begins to pour. Listen to the sound of the liquid hitting the bottom of the tankard. Glug, glug, splash. It's a deep, resonant sound. The ale is thick, unfiltered, and the sound it makes is heavy, like a liquid velvet falling into the metal cup. A white, creamy foam begins to rise to the top, bubbling softly, pop, pop, hiss. The tavern keeper watches the foam rise, waiting for it to reach the very lip of the tankard. He doesn't spill a drop. His patience is infinite. He sets the cloth down, leans his weight onto the counter, and waits. Think about the silence of this man. How many secrets has he heard whispered in the corners of this room? How many kings, and how many thieves, has he served without judgment? To him, everyone is the same. Just another soul seeking a brief respite from the darkness of the road. He is the keeper of the threshold, the guardian of the peace. Behind him, on the wall, hang a row of iron keys. Large, heavy, rusted keys that belong to the rooms upstairs, or the larders below. They sway slightly in the draught, clink, clink. A tiny, delicate sound compared to the massive silence of the man who owns them. He picks up a small, wooden bowl. He turns toward the hearth, toward the perpetual stew. He moves with the grace of a slow-motion shadow. He picks up the long-handled iron ladle. Listen as the ladle dips into the cauldron. Schloop. A wet, heavy sound. He stirs the stew once, twice, 3 times. The metal of the ladle scrapes against the bottom of the iron pot. Scree, scree. It's a grounding sound, a sound that says the food is real, and it is ready. The steam rises up, wrapping around his face, but he doesn't blink. He ladles the thick, brown broth into the bowl. He adds a piece of crusty, dark bread on the side. Now, he begins to walk toward you. His footsteps on the rushes are heavy. Crunch, rustle, crunch. He moves with a slight limp, a reminder of a winter long ago. Every step is measured. Every step is certain. He reaches your table. He doesn't ask if you are hungry. He knows. He sets the bowl down first. Clack. Then the tankard. Clink. For a second, he stands over you. You can smell the leather of his apron, the faint scent of the cellar, and the honest smell of hard work. He nods, a fraction of an inch. A silent blessing on your meal. Then, he turns away. He doesn't wait for a thank you. He is already moving back toward his counter, back to his cloth, back to his quiet vigil. Watch his back as he retreats into the shadows. He is the pillar that holds this roof up. Without him, this fire would go out. This door would stay locked. The night would win. But as long as he is there, polishing his mugs, stirring his pots, watching the room with those tired, ancient eyes, you are safe. The tavern keeper has left you, returning to his quiet vigil behind the counter, but he has left behind 2 vessels that hold the very essence of the medieval harvest. Look down at the table. Beside your steaming bowl of stew, there are 2 choices. 2 liquids that have fueled the dreams and the labors of men for 1,000 years. Ale and mead. Let's look at the ale first. It sits in a heavy, wide-bottomed tankard made of seasoned leather, stitched tightly with waxed thread. In this century, ale is not just a drink, it is liquid bread. It is thick, cloudy, and unfiltered. Watch the surface of the liquid. It doesn't have the sharp, fizzy carbonation of the modern world. Instead, it has a soft, creamy head of foam that looks like the lace of a winter frost. Small bubbles rise slowly, very slowly, from the bottom of the vessel, popping with a sound so faint it is almost a thought. Pop. Pop. Lean in and smell it. It smells of fermented grain, of wet straw, and of the earth itself. There is a sweetness there, a malty, bready aroma that feels heavy in your nostrils. It's the smell of a summer field that has been captured and kept in a dark cellar. Now, consider the mead. It is served in a smaller, more delicate cup made of fired clay. Mead is the drink of the poets, the drink of the kings. It is made from honey, gathered by bees from the wildflowers that grow on the edges of the great forests. The color is different. While the ale is a deep, murky amber, the mead is the color of a setting sun. It is a pale, translucent gold, catching the flicker of the hearth fire and turning it into a dancing spark inside the cup. When you lift the clay cup, it feels cool against your palm. The liquid inside is still, like a mountain pool. It carries a scent that is intoxicatingly sweet, yet sharp. It smells of clover, of heather, and of the invisible work of 1,000,000 bees. It is the sweetness of the wild, tamed by the patience of the brewer. Take a moment to imagine the choice. The ale is for the body. It is for the man who has walked 20 miles through the mud. It is meant to fill the stomach and quiet the ache in the muscles. It is a humble, honest, grounding companion. The mead is for the mind. It is for the storyteller, for the man who wants to forget the weight of his armor and remember the warmth of a song. It is light, warming the throat like a slow-burning ember. Listen to the sounds as you move the vessels. The leather tankard makes a soft, dull thud as you slide it across the wood. The clay cup makes a tiny, high-pitched clink. These are the sounds of the night's beginning. You take a small sip of the ale. It is room temperature, not cold, but cool enough to be refreshing. The texture is grainy, almost like a thin porridge. As it slides down your throat, you feel a wave of nutrition, a heavy, sleepy energy that begins to spread from your chest to your limbs. Then, a taste of the mead. It is syrupy, coating your tongue in a film of floral sugar. The warmth hits you instantly, a glow that starts behind your eyes and radiates outward. It tastes of history. It tastes of ancient meadows that no longer exist. Which one do you choose for the long night ahead? Or do you let them sit there, side by side, two different versions of the earth's bounty? Watch the way the light from the tallow candle on your table reflects in the liquids. The ale absorbs the light, glowing with a deep, internal heat. The mead reflects the light, throwing tiny, golden stars against the underside of your chin. Everything about these drinks is slow. They were brewed over weeks. They were fermented in the dark. They were poured with a steady hand. There is no reason to rush. The world outside is still raining. The wind is still howling against the city walls. But here, you have the grain, and you have the honey. You have the leather, and you have the clay. Take another breath of the heavy, yeasty air. Let the aromas mingle with the smoke of the hearth. Your glass is full. Your night is young. And the warmth is just beginning to settle into the marrow of your bones. Your tankard of ale is resting on the table, and the warmth of the mead is already a soft glow in your chest. But now, your attention turns to the bowl that sits before you. The perpetual stew. Look at the steam as it rises in thin, ghostly ribbons from the surface of the wooden bowl. This is not a meal that was started an hour ago. This is a dish with a lineage. A dish that has been simmering in that great iron cauldron over the hearth for days, perhaps weeks, perhaps longer. In this tavern, the fire never truly goes out. And the pot never truly goes empty. Every morning, the tavern keeper adds new water, new handfuls of grain, a few more carrots, a fresh piece of salted pork. And every night, it transforms into this, a thick, dark, velvet essence of the harvest. Take the heavy wooden spoon in your hand. Feel the weight of it. It's carved from a single piece of beechwood, stained dark by 1,000 different broths. Dip it slowly into the bowl. Schloop. The texture is incredible. It is so thick that the spoon almost stands up on its own. As you stir, you see the ingredients swirling in a slow, circular dance. You see chunks of turnip that have softened until they are like butter. You see grains of barley that have swelled with the broth, bursting with the flavor of the meat and the herbs. There are no bright, artificial colors here. Everything is a shade of the earth. Deep browns, muted oranges, soft creams. It is the color of the forest floor in late autumn. Lift a spoonful, just halfway to your lips. Watch the way the broth drips back into the bowl. drip, plop, drip. It's a rhythmic, viscous sound. A sound of abundance. Now, the smell. It is the most complex aroma in the room. Beyond the wood smoke and the ale, there is the scent of the long cooking. You can smell the salt from the pork, a sharp, savory note that makes your mouth water in the most gentle way. You can smell the onions, cooked so long they have become sweet like honey. And then, the herbs. The tavern keeper's wife gathered these in the late summer. Dried bunches of thyme, savory, and bay leaves. They have been boiling in that pot for so long that their flavor has seeped into the very iron of the cauldron itself. It's a deep, woody, medicinal smell that tells your body it is being nourished. Think about the history of this stew. A traveler who sat here 3 days ago ate from this same pot. A merchant who arrived yesterday added to its depth. It is a living thing. A culinary chain that connects everyone who has ever sought shelter in this tavern. You take your first bite. It is hot, but not searing. The heat is a slow bloom on your tongue. The flavors are not sharp, they are rounded, blended together by the infinite patience of the fire. The salt, the fat, the grain. It's a symphony of the simple. As you chew slowly, very slowly, you listen to the cauldron over the fire. Blub, bubble, blub. A heavy, rhythmic sighing of the liquid. The iron pot is thick, protecting the stew from the direct bite of the flames, allowing it to simmer in a constant, gentle state of becoming. Every bubble that reaches the surface releases a new burst of steam. H. The steam fills the air around you, creating a private, warm microclimate at your table. Your world has shrunk. It is no longer the city, it is no longer the tavern, it is just you, the spoon, and the bowl. You take a piece of the dark, crusty bread. It is dense, made from rye and stone-ground flour. You dip it into the edge of the bowl, letting it soak up the rich, brown gravy. Watch as the bread changes color, absorbing the life of the stew. When you eat the soaked bread, it is the ultimate comfort. It is the taste of the earth's strength. It fills the empty spaces in your stomach, and as it does, a profound heaviness begins to settle over your limbs. Your heart rate slows. Your breathing becomes deep and regular. In and out. Each spoonful is like a small, warm weight being added to your soul, grounding you, pulling you down toward the soft, welcoming embrace of sleep. The firelight flickers against the side of your bowl, creating a golden rim around the edge of the broth. You find yourself staring into the center of the stew, lost in the steam, lost in the patterns of the fat droplets that float on the surface like tiny, golden planets. There is no more hunger. There is only the feeling of being full, of being satisfied, of being, finally, at peace. The perpetual stew continues to bubble in its iron home. It will be there tomorrow, and the day after. But tonight, it has done its job for you. Lay the spoon down. Clack. The bowl is half empty, and you are more than half asleep. The warmth of the meal is moving through your blood now, a slow, lazy river of heat. Your bowl of stew is nearly finished, and the heavy, warm weight of the meal has anchored you to the oak bench. Your eyes are half closed now, staring into the middle distance, and as your sight blurs, your hearing begins to sharpen. Not for any specific sound, but for the collective, ancient drone of the room. The low hum of conversation. Listen. It is a sea of sound. a gentle, rolling tide of human voices that has no beginning and no end. In this medieval hall, voices don't travel in straight lines. They bounce off the rough, lime-washed stone walls. They get caught in the heavy, smoke-stained wool of the tapestries. They are softened by the thick layers of rushes on the floor. What you hear is not a series of words, but a texture. Behind you, in the shadows, two farmers are talking. Their voices are deep, gravelly, like the sound of stones grinding together. They aren't arguing. They are simply reciting the slow, unchanging liturgy of the land. The price of wool, the coming frost, the health of a plow ox. Their words fall like heavy seeds into the silence, steady, predictable, and incredibly, incredibly boring. To your left, a merchant is whispering to his apprentice. A soft, sibilant sound. SSSSH. HHHH, SSSSH. It's like the sound of dry leaves blowing across a courtyard. He is counting, calculating, his voice a rhythmic pulse of numbers and trade routes. It is a monotonous, mathematical lullaby that makes your head tilt just a fraction of an inch toward your shoulder. And then, there is the laughter. It isn't a loud, jarring sound. Here, in the heavy air of the tavern, laughter is muffled. It's a low, belly-deep chuckle that rumbles through the timber frames of the tables. Ha! 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 It's a sound of contentment. A sound that says, for this one night, the world is all right. Listen to the pauses. Between the sentences, there are long stretches of quiet. The sound of a man taking a long, slow pull from his tankard. Gulp, sigh. The sound of a stool being dragged across the floor. Scree. The sound of the tavern keeper's wife humming a wordless tune as she wipes down a distant table. These sounds are the white noise of the 14th century. There are no engines here. No electricity. No distant roar of traffic. Because of this, the human voice takes on a different quality. It feels organic. It feels like it belongs to the wood and the stone. It is a frequency that the human brain has listened to for thousands of years. It is the sound of the tribe, at rest, in the cave. You find that you can no longer distinguish between the different groups of people. The farmers, the merchant, the soldiers in the corner, their voices begin to blend into one singular, vibrating chord. Hum. It's like the drone of a bagpipe or the chanting of monks in a far-off cathedral. It is steady. It is unhurried. It is the sound of time moving at its natural pace. Your mind begins to drift on this tide of sound. You aren't listening to what they are saying, you are listening to the way they are saying it. The rise and fall of the vowels. The soft, blunt endings of the medieval English dialect. It's a language of the earth, heavy with the weight of the soil and the sea. The fire in the hearth pops, crack, providing a sharp, percussive beat to the low murmur. But the hum quickly recovers, flowing over the crackle like water over a stone. You feel a sense of profound anonymity. In this hum, you are invisible. You don't have to speak. You don't have to listen. You only have to exist within the vibration of the room. It is a protective cocoon of sound. It shields you from the lonely silence of the dark road outside. Think of how many nights this room has held this exact same sound. Centuries of whispers. Centuries of sighs. The walls have soaked it all up. The timber beams are saturated with the echoes of a million forgotten conversations. And now, your own breathing is becoming part of that history. Your chin sinks a little lower. The hum is getting deeper, more distant. It feels as though the tavern is slowly drifting away into a thick, gray fog. The voices are now just a blur. A soft, golden brown smudge of sound. The tavern keeper says something to a guest near the bar. His voice is a low, resonant bass. It vibrates through the floorboards, up through the legs of your bench, and into your very bones. Steady, steady. You are being rocked to sleep by the collective breath of the city, by the weary voices of men who have finished their work, by the soft, rhythmic pulse of a world that is winding down. The darkness outside is vast, but the hum inside is full. It is the sound of humanity huddling together against the night. Let it wash over you. Don't try to catch the words. Just let the frequency resonate in your chest. The room is dim. The fire is warm. The ale is heavy. And the hum, the beautiful, boring, endless hum, is the last thing you hear before the world of dreams begins to open its doors. The low hum of the room has become a distant tide, pulling your consciousness further and further away from the center of the tavern. Your gaze, now heavy and unfocused, drifts away from the bright amber of the hearth and begins to explore the edges of the room. The corners. The places where the firelight cannot quite reach. In a medieval tavern, the light is a precious, fragile thing. It exists in a small circle around the fire and the candles, leaving the rest of the great hall to the shadows. And in those shadows, there are figures. Look toward the far wall, where the timber beams meet the stone in a dark, dusty angle. There sits a man. You cannot see his face. He is wrapped in a cloak of heavy, charcoal-colored wool, the hood pulled low over his brow. He hasn't moved since you arrived. He doesn't drink. He doesn't speak. He is a statue of shadow, a silhouette carved out of the very darkness itself. Observe the stillness of his form. It is a deep, absolute stillness. It makes you realize how much energy we spend just by moving our eyes, or shifting our weight. This figure has surrendered to the quiet. Perhaps he is a pilgrim, resting his weary soul after months on the road to Canterbury. Or perhaps he is a messenger, waiting for a signal that will only come in the deepest part of the night. It doesn't matter. In this space, he is simply a part of the architecture. A human shadow merging with the soot-stained oak. Move your eyes to the left, toward the small alcove beneath the stairs. There is another figure there, hunched over a small, scarred table. A flickering tallow candle sits between him and his companion, but the flame is so low it only illuminates their hands. Watch those hands. They move with a slow, deliberate precision. One hand reaches out, fingers long and thin, and moves a small piece of carved bone across a wooden board. A game of chess, or perhaps fox and geese. The movement is silent. The reaction is a long, slow exhale of breath that barely disturbs the candle flame. These are the silent people of the night. While the farmers laugh and the merchants calculate, these shadowy figures inhabit the silence. They remind you that the tavern is a place of secrets. A place where you can be anyone, or no one at all. The shadows are not frightening. No. They are protective. They are a soft, velvet blanket that hides the world's expectations. In the corner, no one is looking at you. In the shadow, you are allowed to disappear. Look at the way the light from the hearth tries to invade these corners. It sends out long, orange fingers of light that stretch across the floor straw, reaching, only to be swallowed by the darkness. It's a slow, eternal battle between the gold and the gray. You notice the textures in the dark. The rough, uneven surface of the lime wash on the walls. The way the spiderwebs in the high corners catch a stray glint of light, looking like threads of silver silk suspended in the void. Drift, sway, drift. Everything is moving at the speed of a dream. There is a knight, or perhaps just a man who wishes to be one, sitting by the back door. His iron breastplate is resting on the bench beside him. In the dim light, the metal doesn't shine. It has a dull, matte glow, reflecting the dying embers of the fire like a cold, gray eye. He is leaning his head against the stone wall, his eyes closed. The shadows wrap around his tired shoulders, offering him a peace that his armor never could. Think of the anonymity of these figures. You will never know their names. You will never hear their stories. They are like ghosts from a past that hasn't happened yet. They are the background radiation of history. Your own shadow is stretched out behind you now, climbing up the wall. It is long, thin, and flickering. It joins the other shadows, dancing a slow, silent pavane against the timber beams. You feel your own identity beginning to blur. You are no longer a traveler with a name, a destination, a worry. You are just another shadowy figure, in another quiet corner, in a century made of candle smoke. The darkness in the corners feels heavy, like a deep, cool water. You can almost feel it rising around your ankles, filling the room, dampening the last of the noise. The man in the cloak shifts his position, just an inch. The wool of his garment makes a soft, dry sound against the wood. And then, stillness returns. More profound than before. Every shadow is a place to rest your eyes. Every dark alcove is a place to hide your thoughts. The tavern is full of people, yet it feels empty. It is full of life, yet it feels like a tomb of golden peace. Let your gaze stay in the corner. Don't look back at the fire. Let the gray tones and the deep blacks soothe your tired retinas. The shadows in the corners have settled, and the world feels as though it is held in a bell jar of golden smoke. But then, a new texture enters the air. It isn't a smell or a sight, but a vibration. A sound that seems to emerge not from a person, but from the very wood of the building itself. In the dimmest part of the room, near the cooling hearth, a man is holding a lute. He is not a court musician in silk robes. He is a traveler, a wanderer, his instrument as scarred and weathered as his own face. Watch as his fingers, long and calloused, hover over the strings. There is a moment of total silence. A breath held by the entire room. And then, the first note. It is a low, resonant chime. A single, solitary sound that hangs in the heavy air, vibrating against the copper pots and the glass bottles. It is the sound of a tear falling into a pool of still water. It fades slowly, very slowly, leaving a trail of silence in its wake. Then, another. Ting. He begins to play a tune, but it is not a dance. It is a lament. A melancholy, repetitive melody that moves at the pace of a slow heartbeat. In and out. The melody is circular. It goes up a few notes, then drifts back down, like a leaf caught in a gentle, autumn draft. It doesn't ask for your attention. It doesn't demand that you listen. It simply exists, adding another layer to the warmth of the tavern. Listen to the sound of the instrument itself. This is not the bright, metallic sound of a modern guitar. The strings are made of gut, and the body is made of thin, dried pearwood. The sound is organic, soft, and slightly muffled, as if the music is coming from behind a heavy curtain of velvet. The bard begins to sing, but it isn't really singing. It is a half-whispered, melodic narration. The words are in a dialect so old, so thick, that they melt into the air before you can understand them. You catch only fragments. The green wood. The setting sun. The long road home. The words are unimportant. It is the tone that matters. It is the sound of a voice that has seen 1,000 miles of road. A voice that is tired and peaceful and ready for the night. As he plays, the tavern keeper stops his polishing for a moment. He leans his heavy elbows on the counter, his head tilting to one side. Even the shadowy figures in the corners seem to lean in, their silhouettes softening against the stone walls. The music is a bridge, connecting the farmer, the knight, the thief, and you. You find yourself breathing in time with the music. The lute has a peculiar way of making the room feel smaller, more intimate. The high rafters seem to descend, the walls seem to pull closer, wrapping you in a cocoon of vibrating wood. Think of the age of this song. It was played in camps by the sea. It was played in the halls of kings who are now dust. It has been passed down from teacher to student, not through paper, but through the air, through the very vibration of the strings. It is a ghost of a melody, haunting the 14th century. The fire pops in the hearth, a sharp, orange spark flying up into the chimney. Snap! The bard doesn't flinch. He incorporates the sound into the music, a rhythmic punctuation from the earth itself. Your eyes are now closed. You are no longer looking at the room, you are seeing the music. You see vast, rolling hills under a gray sky. You see the slow movement of a river under a stone bridge. You see the flickering of a single candle in a window far, far away. The tune is getting slower. The pauses between the notes are becoming longer. Each note is a small, gentle weight being placed upon your chest, pressing you down, sinking you into the straw, sinking you into the oak. Your mind is like a boat on a calm, dark lake, drifting further and further from the shore of wakefulness. The bard's voice grows even softer. A mere breath of sound. A vocal shadow. The song is ending, but it doesn't really stop. It just fades into the background noise of the tavern. It becomes part of the hum, part of the smoke, part of the stillness. You feel a profound sense of melancholy, but it is a beautiful, comforting sadness. It is the realization that everything is as it should be. The road was long, but the song is here. The night is cold, but the melody is warm. The last note is played. He doesn't lift his hand from the strings. He lets the vibration die out naturally. Listen to the decay of the sound. Hum. Silence returns. But it is a different kind of silence than before. It is a silence that is full. A silence that has been washed by the music. The bard bows his head, his face disappearing back into the shadows. The instrument rests against his lap, a silent, wooden companion. You are now at the edge of the world. The music has carried you to the very brink of sleep. The echo of the bard's lute has finally dissolved into the smoky rafters, leaving behind a silence that is soon filled by a different kind of rhythm. It is a small sound, sharp, yet distant. A dry, clicking, clattering sound that comes from the table nearest to the shadows. The clatter of dice. In this corner of the tavern, time is not measured by the sun or the moon, but by the throw of the bones. Look at the two men sitting there. Their faces are etched with a quiet, intense focus, but there is no shouting. No anger. Only the repetitive, hypnotic cycle of the game. Observe the dice themselves. They are not made of plastic or resin. They are carved from the dense, white bone of an ox, or perhaps a deer. They are small, slightly irregular cubes, smoothed by years of being tumbled in palms and tossed onto rough timber. The pips, the little dots representing the numbers, are hand-carved and filled with dark soot. Watch the hand of the man closest to you. It is a weathered hand, the skin like old parchment. He scoops the 3 small bones into his cupped palm. Listen to the sound as he shakes them. Rattle, click, rattle. It's a hollow, dry, bone-on-bone sound. It sounds like a secret being whispered in a language made of calcium and air. He pauses. The room seems to hold its breath. And then, he releases them. The dice tumble across the uneven surface of the oak table. They bounce off the grain of the wood, hitting a small knot, spinning, until they finally come to rest near a puddle of dried ale. 1, 4, and 6. The other man doesn't say a word. He simply nods, a slow, rhythmic movement of his head. He reaches out with long, thin fingers and gathers the bones back into his own hand. Scrape, click. This is the heartbeat of the tavern's nightlife. The game is called Hazard, or perhaps Passage. But the name doesn't matter as much as the rhythm. Rattle, rattle, toss. Rattle, rattle, toss. It is a percussive lullaby, a steady, mechanical beat that anchors your wandering mind. Think of the thousands of times these dice have hit this table. Think of the fortunes lost, and the small, copper victories won. To the men playing, this is a serious pursuit. But to you, the observer, it is merely a beautiful, boring, repetitive sequence of events. You find yourself watching the way the dice catch the light as they spin. For a split second, the white bone flashes brilliantly against the dark wood, like a tiny star collapsing. And then, it stops. Static. Silent. The sound of the dice is joined by the sound of the coins. A merchant's apprentice reaches into a small, leather pouch. He pulls out a single, thin, silver penny. Listen to the sound as he places it on the table. Chink. It's a delicate, metallic sound, the highest note in the room. It rings out, then quickly fades into the thick, damp air. The cycle begins again. Rattle, rattle, toss. There is something deeply comforting about this repetition. It tells you that the world is predictable. That even in the middle of a dark, chaotic century, some things remain constant. The weight of the bone. The hardness of the wood. The law of chance. Your eyes are beginning to follow the movement of the dice in a slow, rhythmic sweep. Left to right. Right to left. Your head is feeling heavier with every toss. It's as if the dice are counting down the seconds until your consciousness finally surrenders. Rattle, click. The air around the gaming table feels still. The smoke from their pipes rises in straight, vertical lines, undisturbed by the movement of the bones. The players have become part of the furniture. They are fixtures of the night, as eternal as the hearth and the sign outside. You notice a small crack in the table where one of the dice always seems to catch. You wait for it. You anticipate the sound. Click. There it is. The satisfaction of the expected sound sends a wave of relaxation through your shoulders. The game could go on until dawn. It likely will. But you don't need to see the end. You don't need to know who wins. The victory is in the sound itself. The victory is in the peace that this small, repetitive clatter brings to the room. The men fade into the background. Their hands become shadows. The dice become a blur. Only the sound remains. Rattle, rattle, toss. It's the sound of a clock without hands, ticking away the exhaustion of the day. Close your eyes now. Imagine you can still hear them in the dark. The tiny bone cubes dancing on the oak. Click, clack, still. Let the rhythm take over your breathing. Rattle, breathe in. Toss, breathe out. The world of the tavern is winding down. The games are slowing. The night is deepening. The rhythmic clatter of the dice has become a distant, fading memory, a sound lost in the folds of the heavy air. Now, your world narrows even further. Your focus drifts away from the people, away from the sounds, and settles on the small, humble light sitting on the corner of your table. The tallow candle. In this medieval night, light is not a constant. It is a living, breathing thing, a fragile flame fighting against a vast ocean of darkness. Look closely at the candle. It is not the white, scentless paraffin of the future. It is made of tallow, rendered animal fat, collected and molded by hand. It is a dull, off-white color, the texture of cold marble, but soft and slightly oily to the touch. Watch the flame. It is a tiny, golden leaf, trembling on a wick of twisted hemp. Flicker, sway, still. It doesn't burn with a steady glow. It pulses. It has a heartbeat. As the draft from the distant door or the chimney catches it, the flame stretches. It becomes long, thin, reaching upward toward the smoke-stained rafters. Then it ducks and dances, turning a deep, angry orange at the base, before settling back into a calm, steady yellow. Every movement of the flame creates a corresponding dance of shadows on the wall behind you. Large, distorted shapes move across the stones. The shadow of your cup becomes a towering monument. The shadow of the tavern keeper becomes a slow-moving giant. It's a silent, shadow play that has no plot, only movement. Flicker, dance, fade. Listen to the candle. If the room is quiet enough, you can hear it. Sputter, crack, hiss. Small pockets of impurities in the fat explode with a tiny, microscopic sound. It is the sound of the candle consuming itself, sacrificing its own body to keep the darkness at bay for just one more hour. Look at the wax. The heat of the flame has created a small, liquid pool around the wick. It is clear and shimmering, like a tiny lake of oil. Every few minutes, a single drop of melted tallow escapes the rim. Watch it. It moves slowly, very slowly, a viscous, heavy bead of liquid light sliding down the side of the candle. It pauses, gathering its weight, before it finally falls onto the wooden table. Plip. There, it cools instantly, turning back into a solid, opaque white mound. A frozen moment of time. Over the hours, the candle creates its own landscape of drippings, a miniature mountain range of wasted light. The scent of the burning tallow is thick. It is earthy, slightly salty, and very heavy. It mingles with the smell of the wood smoke, creating an aroma that feels like a physical weight upon your eyelids. It's a primitive smell. A smell that would have been familiar to every human being for 1,000 years. It signals the end of the day. It signals the time for rest. You find your eyes tracking the tip of the wick. It is charred black, glowing with a tiny, red ember at the very point. The smoke rises from it in a thin, gray thread. It doesn't go straight up. It curls. It spirals. It weaves a pattern in the air that your tired mind tries to follow, but cannot. Your vision is becoming blurry. The golden light of the candle is no longer a sharp shape. It is becoming a soft, warm haze. A glow that seems to expand, filling your entire field of vision with a soft, amber fog. The light is dimming now. The candle has burned down by another inch. The shadows in the room are growing bolder. They are creeping forward from the corners, reclaiming the floor straw, reclaiming the empty tables. The circle of light is shrinking, drawing you closer to the center of your own peace. Think of how many people have watched a candle like this end its life. In monks' cells, in kings' chambers, in peasants' huts. The fading of the light is the great equalizer. It tells everyone, the powerful and the poor, that the day is done. The flame gives one last, great leap. It flares up, bright and defiant, illuminating the grain of the oak table for one final second. You see every scratch, every ancient stain. And then, it settles. It becomes very small. A tiny, blue and gold bead of light. You realize that you are waiting for it to go out. You are waiting for the total surrender to the dark. But not yet. It still has a little life left. A little more warmth to give. Let your breathing match the pulse of the flame. Glow, breathe in. Dim, breathe out. The room is becoming a sea of velvet gray. The only thing left in the universe is this one, dying candle. It is a beacon for your dreams. A lighthouse at the edge of sleep. As the wick drowns slowly in its own melted fat, the light becomes a whisper. A golden sigh. Close your eyes now. Even with your lids shut, you can see the ghost of the flame, a soft, purple smudge in the darkness of your mind. The candle is doing its final work. It is leading you away from the world of sight and into the world of rest. The candle light has settled into a low, steady throb, and the world of the tavern has reached a state of almost perfect equilibrium. But then, the stillness is momentarily broken. Not by a shout, not by a storm, but by a brief, rhythmic disturbance. In the center of the room, a traveler who has been sleeping with his head upon his arms suddenly shifts. Listen to the sound. Scrape. His heavy wool sleeve drags across the rough surface of the oak table. It is a dry, friction-filled sound that echoes in the quiet hall. He mutters something in his sleep, a fragment of a dream, a word from a language spoken in a valley far to the north. The sound is low, gravelly, and entirely unintelligible, It is the sound of a human spirit, wandering through the landscapes of the mind, while the body remains anchored to a wooden bench. Then, a mug is bumped. The empty pewter tankard tilts on its side. Clang, wobble, wobble, clatter. It doesn't fall to the floor. It simply rolls in a slow, heavy circle on the timber, the metal ringing out like a distant, muted church bell. The sound vibrates through the tabletop, a metallic hum that you can feel in your own elbows as you lean against the wood. The tavern keeper looks up from his counter. He doesn't move. He just watches. His eyes are steady, unblinking. He waits to see if the ripples of this small event will grow, or if they will fade. The sleeper settles again. He takes a long, deep, ragged breath. The sound of his exhale is like the tide retreating over shingles. He pulls his cloak tighter around his shoulders, the thick wool rustling like dry grass. And then, silence returns. But it is a deeper silence than before. It is the silence that follows a stone being dropped into a deep well. The ripples move outward, touching the corners, touching the shadows, and then they vanish. The disturbance has only served to highlight how vast the peace of this room truly is. A stray dog, sleeping near the dying embers of the hearth, lifts its head. Its ears twitch at the fading echo of the pewter mug. You hear the soft, wet sound of its nose sniffing the air. Sniff, sniff. Satisfied that the world is still safe, that the night is still long, the dog lets out a soft, whistling sigh. It drops its head back onto its paws with a muffled thud on the rushes. Think about the fragility of the peace. How a single sound can cut through the darkness, and how quickly the darkness heals itself. The tavern is like a living organism. It has been disturbed, it has reacted, and now it is returning to sleep. You notice the rhythm of the room has changed slightly. The fire in the hearth has shifted because of the draft from the sleeper's movement. A small log has rolled over, exposing a glowing, white-hot core of embers. Snap! A single spark flies up, a tiny, orange star that vanishes into the soot of the chimney. The air feels thicker now. The warmth of the room seems to rush in to fill the space where the sound was. Listen to the silence that follows. It isn't empty. It is a heavy silence. It carries the weight of everyone's exhaustion. It carries the weight of the rain that is still falling, unseen, outside the thick stone walls. You find your own heart rate slowing down to match the new, deeper quiet. Your breathing becomes a mirror to the sleeper's breath. Slow, steady, deep. The disturbance was a reminder that you are not alone. That there are other souls here, all sharing this same brief moment in time. All of you, huddled together in a circle of warmth, while the 14th century rolls on outside in the cold. The pewter mug is now still. The traveler is now silent. The tavern keeper has returned to his cloth and his thoughts. The ripples have reached the shore. The disturbance is over. What remains is the gold, the smoke, and the incredible, overwhelming boringness of a safe night. Let the memory of the sound fade. Let the return of the quiet press down upon your eyelids. The tavern has sighed, and now it is falling back into its ancient, wooden slumber. The warmth of the hearth has done its work, and your body feels as though it is made of heavy, molten lead. It is time. Time to leave the golden circle of the fire, and find the path to the high, dark spaces where sleep waits. You rise from your oak bench, slowly. Your joints feel stiff, a pleasant, weary ache that reminds you of the miles you've conquered. You move toward the back of the common room, away from the low hum and the smell of the stew. And there, in the deepest shadow of the hall, stands the staircase. Look at it. It is not a modern staircase of straight lines and carpeted steps. It is a spiral of ancient timber, carved from the heart of a giant tree. The wood is dark, nearly black, stained by a century of tallow smoke and the touch of 1,000 hands. You place your hand on the banister. The wood is cool, smooth as glass, but you can feel the deep rifts of the grain beneath your skin. It feels solid, like the roots of the earth itself. Take the first step. The sound is long, high-pitched, and musical in its own tired way. It is the voice of the wood protesting the weight of the living. The sound echoes up into the darkness of the second floor, a slow, wooden sigh. You pause, letting the sound die away before you move again. The second step. A different note. This one is a sharp, hollow pop. A small adjustment of the timber as it settles into the stone wall. You are moving vertically now, leaving the world of the tavern floor behind. As you climb, the air begins to change. It is cooler here, away from the hearth, but it is also quieter. The smells of the kitchen, the salt, the onions, the ale, begin to fade, replaced by the scent of the upper house. The smell of dry straw, old dust, and the faint, sweet aroma of the cedarwood beams. Your eyes are fixed on your feet. You watch the way the dim light from below catches the edge of each tread. The wood is worn in the center, hollowed out into shallow valleys by generations of travelers. You are walking in the literal footsteps of history. The staircase is narrow. The walls are made of lath and plaster, rough to the touch. You can feel the vibration of the tavern below through the soles of your boots, but it is getting fainter with every inch you climb. The voices of the farmers are now just a distant, rhythmic mumble. The clatter of the dice is a ghost of a sound. You reach the middle of the spiral. Here, there is a small, slit-like window set into the stone. Stop for a moment. Look through the glass. It is thick, wavy, and green, made by craftsmen who didn't know how to make it perfectly clear. Outside, the medieval night is absolute. You see the rain streaking across the glass, tiny, silver needles of light caught by the faint glow of the city's watchfires. The wind whistles through the stone frame, a low, haunting hoo that makes the warmth of the tavern feel even more precious. The night is vast, and cold, and indifferent. But you are on the stairs. You are moving toward the straw. You continue your ascent. Your legs feel heavier now. Every step is a conscious effort. It's a rhythmic, repetitive, boring cycle of movement. The light from the common room is now a distant, orange smudge below you. Ahead, there is only the soft, gray darkness of the upper landing. You notice a small, iron lantern hanging from a hook on the wall. The flame inside is tiny, no larger than a plum. It flickers as you pass, casting your shadow against the curved wall in a giant, distorted dance. Your shadow climbs the stairs with you, a silent, dark twin. Think of the stillness of this wood when no one is climbing. In the middle of the day, when the tavern is empty, these stairs sit in total silence. They hold the memory of every person who has ever gone to bed here. And now, they are holding you. The last step is the loudest. It settles into the floorboards of the upper landing with a finality that tells you the climb is over. You stand still for a heartbeat, your hand still on the rail. Your breathing is slow. The air up here is still, heavy with the weight of sleep. Behind the thin wooden doors of the landing, you can hear the soft, rhythmic breathing of other travelers. A community of the tired. The staircase has delivered you. It has carried you from the light to the dark, from the noise to the silence. As you turn away from the stairs, you hear one last, faint groan of the wood, as if the staircase is settling back into its own slumber. The common room is a world away. The night is outside, and the bed is just a few steps further. After the long, rhythmic climb of the creaking staircase, you find yourself standing at the threshold of the upper chamber. This is the end of your physical journey for tonight. Take a deep breath. The air here is different from the common room below. It is cooler, thinner, and carries the dry, sweet scent of seasoned timber and aged hay. You push the door open, just a fraction of an inch. Scree. The sound is a thin, high-pitched silver line in the darkness. You step inside, and the world of the tavern floor, the ale, and the firelight is finally left behind. You have entered the realm of the sleepers. The shared sleeping quarters. Stand still for a moment. Let your eyes adjust to the velvet dark. The room is vast and cavernous. Overhead, the massive ceiling beams hang low, looking like the ribcage of a great, wooden beast. Dust motes, invisible in the daylight, dance in the faint, blue glow of the moonlight that spills through a small, leaded glass window. Look at the floor. It is not a place for beds, but for pallets. Sacks of coarse burlap stuffed tightly with dried river rushes and summer straw. They are lined up in rows along the stone walls, looking like small, golden islands in a sea of shadow. Listen to the room. It is a symphony of stillness. You hear the rhythmic, heavy breathing of a dozen men, all strangers to you, yet all brothers in exhaustion. H. Shh. It is a wave of sound that rolls across the floorboards, steady, ancient, and profoundly calming. One traveler, buried deep in his wool cloak, shifts his weight. Crunch, rustle. The sound of the dry straw compressing beneath him is like the sound of a forest floor underfoot. It is a dry, satisfying sound that signals the body's surrender to gravity. You move toward your own pallet. Every step you take is cautious, slow. You feel the grain of the floorboards through your stockings, cold and solid. Creak, creak. The house is talking to you, telling you that it is time to be still. Sit down on the edge of the hay-filled mattress. Feel the texture of the burlap. It is rough, honest, and smells of the sun-drenched fields where the grass was harvested months ago. You pull off your boots. Thud. 1. Thud. 2. The release of tension in your feet is almost overwhelming. You feel the blood returning to your toes, a warm, tingling sensation that travels up your legs. You lie back. The pallet is not soft like a modern bed, but it is supportive. The straw shifts and settles around your body, molding itself to the shape of your weariness. Rustle, click, settle. You pull your heavy, indigo-colored wool cloak over you, drawing it up to your chin. The weight of the fabric is a comfort, a heavy, warm hand pressing you down into the earth. Look up at the rafters. In the dim light, they seem to move, swaying slightly in the draft. You see a tiny spider, working in the corner of the window frame, spinning a web that will catch the morning light. Its movements are silent, precise, and infinitely slow. Outside, the rain has found a steady rhythm. Tap, tap, pitter-patter. It hits the slate roof tiles just inches above your head. It is a cold, wet world out there, a world of mud and wind. But here, behind these thick stone walls, you are safe. You are dry. You are forgotten by the world. Your eyelids are no longer yours to control. They are heavy as lead coins. The blue moonlight on the floor begins to blur into a soft, gray haze. The sounds of the other sleepers become a single, distant drone. Hum. You are drifting now. You are no longer a traveler in 1385. You are simply a consciousness, floating in a sea of warm wool and dry grass. The tavern is a ship, and it is sailing through the dark ocean of the night, carrying you toward the sunrise. Think of the peace of this moment. No maps to read. No roads to walk. No coins to count. There is only the breath. Breathe in. Breathe out. The straw beneath you has finally stopped rustling. The room has accepted your presence. You are one with the shadows. You are one with the oak. You are lying still now, cocooned in the heavy, damp-smelling wool of your cloak, and the straw beneath you has finished its final, settling sigh. But the world outside has not gone silent. It has found a new language. The rain. Listen to the roof. Just a few feet above your head lie the shingles, thick slabs of hand-split oak and slate, layered like the scales of an ancient fish. They are the only things standing between you and the vast, cold elements of the English night. Hear the first, deliberate drops. Ting, tap, plop. They are heavy, fat with the moisture of the North Sea, hitting the stone and wood with a dull, wet thud. For a moment, there is a pause, as if the clouds are drawing a long, gray breath. And then, it begins in earnest. It is a rhythmic percussion, 1,000 tiny, liquid hammers striking the roof in a chaotic, yet perfect harmony. The sound is not sharp. It is muffled by the thickness of the stone walls and the heavy timber rafters. It sounds like a whisper, a long, unending shh that blankets the entire city. Follow the path of a single drop in your mind. It hits the peak of the roof, slides down the rough, mossy surface of a slate tile, and joins a small, silver stream in the gutter. You can hear that stream now, a low, gurgling murmur, gurgle, splash, drip. It's the sound of the tavern exhaling the water, pushing the cold away, keeping you dry in your bed of hay. The wind catches the rain, and the rhythm changes. The sound shifts from a steady patter to a soft, sweeping hiss, like the sound of a silk gown being dragged across a stone floor. HSSSSSSSSS. It brushes against the small, leaded window of your chamber, a million tiny fingers scratching at the glass, trying to find a way in. But the glass holds. The oak holds. You feel a profound sense of gratitude for this shelter. Outside, the road you walked today is turning into a river of black mud. The city gates are slick and cold. The iron sign of the White Hart is swaying violently now, its creak lost in the roar of the downpour. But here, under the shingles, you are in a sanctuary of dry air and silence. The sound of the rain is hypnotic because it is eternal. It is the same sound that fell on this roof 100 years ago, and the same sound that will fall 100 years from now. It is the sound of time itself, washing over the world. Your breathing begins to synchronize with the rain. In, as the wind rises. Out, as the water falls. You notice the different tones of the roof. The part above the chimney has a deeper, hollower ring. The part near the eaves has a sharper, splashing note. It's an orchestra of water. A liquid lullaby composed by the night. The darkness in the room feels even deeper now, because the rain has blotted out the stars. The blue moonlight is gone, replaced by a thick, velvety gray. The only light is the one in your memory. Your body feels heavier with every drop that hits the shingles. It's as if the rain is pressing you down, deeper into the straw, deeper into the earth. You are becoming part of the foundation. A stone among stones. A timber among timbers. The sound is becoming blurry. The individual taps are merging into one continuous, white noise. A hum of water that vibrates through the rafters and into your pillow. It's a gentle vibration, a soothing frequency that numbs the last of your thoughts. The rain is telling you that you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. The world is closed for the night. The roads are impassable. The work is finished. There is only the roof. There is only the rain. And there is only you. Imagine the water washing away the dust of your journey. Washing away the worry of the tomorrow. Cleaning the world while you sleep. The patter on the shingles is getting softer now, or perhaps your ears are just moving further away. It's a distant, ghostly sound. Like a memory of a storm. Stay with the rhythm. The rain on the shingles has become a distant, rhythmic hum, a backdrop to the deeper silence that is now rising from the very foundations of the tavern. While you lie tucked away in the high, dark rafters, far below you, in the common room, the great hearth is undergoing its final transformation. The dying embers. The roaring flames of the evening are gone. The tall, dancing ribbons of gold and amber have retreated, consumed by the very heat they created. What remains is the soul of the fire, stripped of its noise, stripped of its violence. Look down into that stone cavern of the fireplace in your mind. There are no more logs to burn. The heavy oak beams have surrendered, turning into massive, glowing blocks of charcoal. They don't flame anymore. They breathe. Watch the pulse of the embers. It is a slow, rhythmic respiration of light. A deep, translucent crimson, like the color of a pomegranate heart, shifting into a bright, searing orange when a stray draft from the chimney touches it. And then, it settles back into a soft, dusty, velvet red. Listen to the sounds of the dying fire. These are the tiny, metallic sounds of the wood structure finally collapsing. As the heat leaves the charcoal, it shrinks, cracking into 1,000 microscopic fissures. It sounds like the ticking of a clock made of glass. A countdown to the total stillness of the night. The warmth in the common room is different now. It is no longer a sharp, aggressive heat that stings the skin. It is a heavy warmth, a radiant peace that has soaked deep into the granite stones of the hearth. Those stones will hold that heat for hours, slowly releasing it into the air like a long, warm exhale. You can feel that warmth rising through the floorboards beneath your palate. It carries with it the ghost of the wood smoke, but it is faint now, filtered by the oak and the hay. It is the tavern's way of saying good night. On the surface of the embers, a thin layer of ash is beginning to form. It is as delicate as a moth's wing, a fine, silver-gray powder that covers the glowing core. Every few minutes, a small flake of ash drifts upward, caught in the rising heat, dancing for a second in the dark before vanishing into the soot. Think of the tavern keeper. He has already done his final task. He has banked the fire, raking the coals together into a tight pile and covering them with a layer of ash to preserve the heat until the morning. It is a ritual of survival, keeping the spark alive in the heart of the darkness. The room below is now a sea of deep shadows. The long tables, the empty benches, the copper pots hanging on the wall, they are all invisible now, except for the occasional, faint glint of red light reflected in a pewter mug. The tavern is no longer a place of business. It is a sanctuary of shadows. The smell of the fire has changed too. It is no longer the scent of fresh, burning wood. It is the scent of the afterburn. An earthy, dry, mineral smell that speaks of things that have been purified by the flame. It is a clean smell, a quiet smell. You find yourself staring into the darkness of your own eyelids, seeing the ghost of those embers. They are the last embers of your own wakefulness. The world of the 14th century is now completely still. The horses in the stable are asleep. The watchman on the city wall is a silent shadow. And the fire, which was the center of your world just an hour ago, is now just a memory of heat. The charcoal is turning to ash. The ash is turning to cold. But the cold will not reach you. You are wrapped in the history of the fire. You are protected by the memory of the light. Let your mind descend into those red coals. Feel the steadiness of the heat. Feel the rhythm of the dying breath. The light is not disappearing, it is merely turning inward. It is becoming a part of the silence. Tink, click. The last of the wood has settled. The last of the glow is hidden beneath the silver dust. The common room is dark. The hearth is quiet. And you are finally at the very end of the day. Stay in the warmth of the embers. Stay in the silver ash. The embers below have turned to silver ash, and the rain on the shingles has become a soft, distant hum that feels like it's coming from another world. Everything is now in place. The tavern is sealed. The fire is banked. And you are no longer a stranger in a strange time. You have become a part of the stillness. Drift into centuries of sleep. Take one last, long, slow breath. Feel the absolute weight of your body. You are not just lying on a straw pallet in a medieval room. You are sinking through the layers of time. Beneath you are the centuries. The floorboards, the stones, the very soil of the earth that has held the dreams of thousands of people before you. The 14th century is a vast, quiet ocean, and you are drifting on its surface. There are no more roads to walk. No more city gates to find. The tavern has done its job. It has held the night at bay, and now it hands you over to the dream. Imagine the darkness as a soft, heavy blanket of velvet. It isn't an empty darkness. It is full of the peace of the ages. The sounds of the room, the breathing of the others, the faint creak of the timber, are now just a part of the silence. They are the rhythmic pulse of a sleeping world. Think of the permanence of this rest. Outside, empires may rise and fall. Kings may be crowned and forgotten. But here, in this pocket of time, in this warm, straw-filled sanctuary, nothing changes. The air is still. The warmth is steady. The silence is absolute. Your mind is like a candle that has finally been snuffed out. A thin, silver thread of smoke remains for a second, curling into the dark, before vanishing completely. There are no thoughts left. Only sensations. The feeling of the heavy wool. The scent of the dry hay. The distant, ghostly of the rain. You are traveling now, without moving. You are drifting back through the years, back through the seasons. The city of 1385 is dissolving into a mist of gold and gray. The walls are fading. The sign of the White Hart is becoming a shadow. Only the peace remains. You are safe. You have always been safe. The tavern was just a bridge, and you have crossed it. Now, you are on the other side. A place where the light is soft, and the air is kind, and the sleep is eternal. The rafters above you are disappearing. The straw beneath you is turning into a cloud. You are becoming a part of the history you came to see. Not as a visitor, but as a memory. Listen to the heartbeat of the building one last time. Thump, thump. It is the pulse of the earth. It is the pulse of the night. Everything is quiet. The tavern keeper is asleep. The fire is ash. The rain is a whisper. And you are gone. Lost in the soft, dark, beautiful folds of the centuries. Close your mind now. Not just your eyes, but your mind. Let the last word you hear be a promise. May your dreams be as long as the road, and as warm as the hearth. Good night, traveler. Good night. Good night.